Thank you. It's really great to be back in Westport this morning, and to be able to be here and to worship together with you. It's always a joy for us to come. Just a couple of things before I say anything. Well, I was going to say important, but this is important. And when I say anything biblically important, firstly, we just want to say a huge thank you to Westport for all your contribution into Flow Conference. You gave as a church so that we could put it together. You came as a church, and not just came and attended, but came and served in so many ways. And so we, as a Flow team and as EMI, are really grateful for all that you sowed into that conference. It was a really good week. Hopefully you had a good week as well if you were there and were blessed. It was a bit emotional for me. It was my last year leading the Flow team. So it was a wonderful week, but also emotional. So I was both tired in many different ways when I got home on Friday evening. But thank you very much for all that you poured into that. I am recovering, but I'm not sure that can quite be said about my office just yet. I've managed to clear a way for Josh to get to his desk, so he can work, and over the next few weeks, hopefully, it will return to some kind of normal. But hopefully you were blessed, and if you enjoyed Flow, but you're still hungry for a little bit more, this coming week is Wondrous, which is a little bit like Flow, but no, it's not that as good. That's recorded, I should be careful. Flow is taking place this week in Belfast. Wondrous is taking place. We're not doing Flow again twice in 1 year, it's too much. But Wondrous is going to start on Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday there's evening celebrations, which will be live. If you can't get to Belfast, they will be live on the Elam Ireland YouTube channel. So you can still join in and watch them. And then there's Bible studies in the morning as well. So if you can get up, that's great. If you can't get up, you can still join in and watch. And Thursday night, just so you know, a little plug, it will be a special night at Wonders. And we're having some ordinations. So myself and Pam Troy, who's in Rosscray, and then two guys who are pastoring in Northern Ireland will be ordained during that service. And so it'll be very special, so watch it just to join in. That's a very historic moment on the island. So please join in and watch that if you can. But if you can get up there, that would be lovely as well. So perhaps you were at Flow or you weren't at Flow. That doesn't matter. Our life sometimes, whether we get these high moments of conference season, and sometimes we talk about this a lot with young people, and maybe we should talk about it a little more in adults, where we go to these conferences and we have these high moments where, God's amazing at conference, and the Spirit moves at conference, and it's great. And then we come back here to life, and it doesn't feel as great as when we were all together with everyone who loves Jesus, and it just makes life nicer. And often our life goes like this kind of steady, we find a rhythm of life. But what it often feels like, and hopefully you can relate, and it's not just me, is that so often we find our rhythm of life, and then something changes. And what we suddenly got used to, and we think, oh, this is lovely, then all of a sudden we're having to reassess and find a new rhythm. It's very easy to recognize when we have kids sometimes that I had got into this lovely rhythm I was talking about with my friend yesterday, where in our house we have a general rule where you stay in your bedroom until 7 a.m. because we need a bit of time to wake up. And so I could get up a little bit before 7, go downstairs, make a coffee, and just sit, and have a nice coffee, and it's quiet, and that's nice. And then we had a new addition to the family, and she's not so keen at staying in her room until 7. She likes to get up about 5:30, 5:45, 6, 6, 6:15, 6:30, 6:45, and just pop into your room and check that you're still there. Which means if now I wanted my coffee quiet, I need to get up at 5, and that's just not a reality for me. I'm really not a morning person. And so I'm trying to readjust my routine to be like, when can I actually just sit and have a coffee in quiet? And that might seem like a silly example, and hopefully it is, but hopefully it paints that picture of sometimes we develop this rhythm in our life or this routine that we find comfortable and we just get it right. And then something happens, and everything kind of gets changed. There's a high moment, or a low moment, or a crash of something, and everything seems to get blown out. It can be good things. We could get a new job. There could be a new person in the family. It could be a transition that we've been looking forward to. It doesn't have to be a negative thing, but something changes our rhythm. But more often than not, it is a negative thing. It's a thing that we find difficult. It's a job that's lost. It's an illness. It's a friendship that's broken down. It's a family dynamic that's changed. And suddenly that routine that we were quite comfortable in and had got our heads around and were enjoying actually gets changed very quickly. It can sometimes seem like chaos reigns, or instability has arrived, or uncertainty has come in to our circumstance that we were actually quite comfortable and quite stable and quite routine in. Our comfort can turn to chaos, or our routine can change to uncertainty. And we can tell people about this and people can see it, but actually, really, the world just expects you to get on with it. You know, everything around you could come crashing down, but your boss still expects you to be there at work. And your bills still need to get paid, and the shopping still needs to be bought, and the food still needs to be cooked. And somehow, in the middle of what becomes chaotic and unstable, is this human culture expectation that, oh, I'm just going to carry on and everything will be fine. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other, as we often say. But actually, I wonder if that's really all that God has for us in those moments. I wonder in those moments of chaos and instability or uncertainty, if God's not just calling us to keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep plodding on as the world expects, or if he has something else, another invitation for us. And that's what we're going to explore together this morning through the life of Isaiah. We are going to be in Isaiah chapter 6. If you want to open it or turn it on and get there, we're going to read a couple of verses together. Because Isaiah finds himself in one of these chaotic and unstable moments. Unstable moments, that's the word I want. And instead of just plodding on, God invites him to something different. And he has this beautiful moment of encounter. And that's where we're going to focus. We're going to be in chapter 6. Let me read the first few verses to us. It says this: In the year that King Uzziah died, I, that's Isaiah, saw the Lord, high and exalted, seated on a throne, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him were seraphim, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. And they called to one another, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory. At the sound of their voices, the doorposts and the thresholds shook, and the temple was filled with smoke. Woe to me, I cried. I am ruined. I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty. Then one of the seraphim flew to me with a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with tongs from the altar, and with it he touched my mouth and said, See, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away, and your sin atoned for. Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send? Who will go for us? And I said, Here I am. Send me. We're going to pause just there, and it's good sometimes to read some bigger chunks to work out where we're sitting in Isaiah's story and his journey, but actually we're only just going to focus on verse 1, which said, In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord, high and exalted, seated on the throne, and the train of his robe filled the temple. And that's as far as we're going to get for this morning. Isn't the Bible great? We could stay here all day and just talk about one verse and still not have unpacked it all. And here's where I'm hoping we're going to land this morning. That in our moments of chaos, instability and confusion is an invitation for encounter. Many of us will know the story of Isaiah, and it's his journey of calling the people to follow God, and also he has this incredible ministry of preparing us for who Jesus is going to be and what he's going to bring. And sometimes we can look at that, and sometimes we even look at the call, and I'm sure we've heard sermons on, who will go send me, and we all have that challenge to go, and that's all great. And we should hear all of those sermons. But where we start in chapter 6 is very far from the glory and the delight of the picture of who Jesus is. Chapter 6 starts with a few simple words that might mean very little to us, and so we're going to unpack them together, and it says this: It is in the year, that King Uzziah died. This is a moment in history where chaos and instability are reigning supreme for Isaiah and his people. King Uzziah had been an incredible king. He led the people well. He kept them safe. He'd built treaties, and he'd negotiated with nations around them that meant the people were at peace and they were in safety. As he reigned, the Assyrian army grew around Israel in strength and were taking over nation and conquering different places. But because the people had King Uzziah, they didn't panic about being overtaken or overthrown, because he was a king who was doing his job well. His job was to reign and keep his people safe, and that is what he was doing, and he did it well. While Uzziah was in power, there was stability. There was strength and there was safety for the people, and there wasn't a need for them to live in fear like the other nations were of a growing army, because they had a king who was doing his job. We don't know the exact year of his death, but it's suggested to be around 740 BC, which is when the Assyrian army was kind of at its pinnacle of military power, and anybody that stood in its way was going to be taken out and conquered and brought under their rule. And so as other nations trembled under the reign of Isaiah and their people carried on life in peace, without chaos, without fear, because Uzziah had done his job well. And in earthly terms, or if we were to make an earthly a math sum, as it were, it would suggest that when everything is fine, we will thrive. So if all the conditions are right, we will have a life that we can thrive in. And we talk about that in plants and flowers, and they need that. My parents are away at the moment, and so every now and again we have to pop round, and my dad has a greenhouse and various other things, which I'm not like green-fingered at all, but I do enjoy the benefits of his gardening when they fill my fridge. But I went around last week to just do all the checks around the house and whatever, and I went into his greenhouse, and he's also quite a DIY man. And so he constructed this contraption that would take water from the water butt that he had outside the greenhouse, and it pumps it up into his greenhouse and then disperses it across the plants. Now that sounds great, except when I arrived there last week, I found out very quickly that his contraption hadn't worked. And there was a lovely dead strawberries that hung from the ceiling, and there was a tray of dead cucumbers that had sat on the side, and thankfully I got a couple of cucumbers that were, safe to take. But the plants weren't growing because the conditions weren't right. They were lacking something. And sometimes we can put that onto ourselves, that actually if all of the conditions in my life are right, naturally I will thrive and grow. Now if we're in Jesus, we will thrive and grow. But I'm not sure Jesus always said the conditions are going to be perfect and lovely if you stay in me. Jesus told us to abide in him, and then we will bear fruit. But maybe I missed it, but I haven't read the verse, and if you know it, please show me, where he says, and by abiding in me, everything will be wonderful, and all the conditions will be right all the time, and therefore you'll grow. The world would like us and our culture would like us to strive for this. If you are comfortable and have all that you need, you will thrive and you will grow. But actually, Jesus seems to paint a different picture. And so Israel in this moment might have thought, Uzziah was here and he was king and all the conditions were right and we could have been great. We would have been in this position to thrive. But then comes the moment in chapter 6. In the year that King Uzziah died. Suddenly those calm and peaceful and nice conditions that had surrounded the Israelite people were gone. Their safety was gone, their security was gone. The king who had worked so hard to ensure that they didn't need to be afraid, though the army was ready if it was needed, but he had prepared a safe place for his people to be, and suddenly that protection was gone. And for all Uzziah's greatness and the things he did well, perhaps what he didn't do was prepare for the next person who was going to be after him to follow on all that greatness. And so the people were left in a moment of chaos and instability and confusion. Isaiah started that passage and said, in the year King Uzziah died. He could have wrote, in the year that everything fell apart. In the year all the plans we made collapsed. In the year when we thought we were comfortable and thriving, the bottom dropped out of the cup. In the year we had peace and security, and suddenly it all ended. That was the season. That was the year. The season of chaos, of instability and confusion. What happened for Isaiah in that year? In the year King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord. In our moments of chaos, instability and confusion is an invitation for a moment of encounter. Because he was into that situation when everything around him was going crazy and was confused and suddenly was thrown up in the air. God says, Isaiah, come see. Come and meet with me. And again, I love people who translate the Bible, and in heaven I'll go and thank them so much. But sometimes, because English is not so great, it doesn't always get translated very well. By no fault of anybody's, just we haven't got enough words in English to convey all that's said in one word. And so when it says, I saw the Lord, actually the phrase better used is, I saw the sovereign reigning, and that reigning is forever and ever ongoing, Lord, seated on his throne. I didn't just see the Lord, I saw the Lord who reigns now and tomorrow and next week and forever. And we need to catch that. Because into the moment where the earthly king's reign had come to an end and confusion was beginning to reign, not only did God invite Isaiah to see him, but he invited him to see him as the king who reigns still, regardless of what had happened to the earthly king. Our king, Isaiah's king, continued to be sovereign. Isn't that a beautiful moment from God? It wasn't just that God said, Isaiah, you need to see me. But in Isaiah's moment of chaos and panic, God didn't just meet him, but he said, Isaiah, come and see that I am everything that you feel you are lacking at the moment. Your earthly king is gone and there might be chaos, but Isaiah, your heavenly king, still is on the throne. I am still sovereign. See up here? It's not chaotic up here, Isaiah. I'm still on the throne. I'm still seated. I'm still ruling. See all the instability down here, Isaiah? It's not up here, because I am still on the throne. Isaiah, see all your confusion and the panic of the people, but that's not up here, because I am your God and I am still sat on the throne. Into Isaiah's moment of chaos and panic was an invitation to see God, but to see him as just what Isaiah needed to remember in that moment. And could I suggest that that same invitation is true for us? Mark said when we started, he didn't know what your week looked like, and I don't know what your week looked like either. And perhaps you came here on a high and life was great. Or perhaps it's not so great. Perhaps you can identify with Isaiah and think, I'm feeling a bit of the chaos, a bit of the confusion, a bit of the instability. What can I suggest? The part of why Isaiah wrote the story like that for us to read is because that same invitation lies for us this morning. There is a God if we are willing to look for him. The Bible tells us that if we seek him, we will find him. God's not going to drag us up there and be like, look up here. But actually he might he will put out an invitation. It says, hey, I see all of the chaos. I see that it's the year, fill in the blank. But here's an invitation to come up and see that I am still the God of peace. I am still the God who has purpose for you. I am still the God who heals. I am still the God who is in control. I am still the God who reigns. I don't know what your blank is in that story of God. What I need to know about you is this. But I do know he is that. That what we need in this season, that he is. And he invites us to come and to see him as God, our feminine. Because in our moments of chaos, instability and confusion, lies an invitation to come and encounter our God just as Isaiah did. Not everything got fixed. I would love to say the next verse said, and everything was lovely, and Isaiah carried on. It doesn't tell us that. But Isaiah got more than that. He got the knowledge of actually, God, whatever happens in this chaos and instability, this is what I know. My God is enough. My God has and is all that I need and who I need him to be, regardless of what king's going to come and take over, regardless of who's going to attack or what's going to happen next to my people. I'm not going to get all of that information. But here's what I can stand on. I've just seen God, sovereign and reigning now and tomorrow. And he is all that I need. This passage is about a call on one man, yes, to be sent out and to share God's word with the people around him. But I also think it was more than that. I think it was a moment for Isaiah and for us to catch that on our journey there will be moments of chaos and instability. There will be moments of confusion. And just like there was for Isaiah, there will be an invitation for us to come and see who God is in this moment. In our moments of chaos, there will be invitations to come and encounter our God, and not only to meet him, not only to see him, but to know that he is who he is and he is all that we need. Our God reigning now and forever. Our God who's provided for us now and will forever. Our God who is faithful now and will continue to be forever. In our moments of chaos and uncertainty, instability, change, shock, anxiety is an invitation for a moment to see the Lord. And to know that he is and will continue to be all that we need. I'm going to ask Josh to come back up and just to lead us as we respond. But I don't think this was just the comfort. I don't think this was just the word for Isaiah. As I said, I fully believe that church God still operates like this. I fully believe that we still, just like Isaiah years ago, will face moments of chaos and uncertainty. Unfortunately, I don't think this side of heaven we get to change that. I would love to, but I'm not sure how that's how it operates. So I think we will find ourselves just like Isaiah, that there will be moments where our story will begin. It was the year that. It was the week that. It was the day that. Yet God extended an invitation for me to come and see my Lord. And I saw him, high and lifted up. And the train of his robe filled the temple. I don't know what your week has looked like, but can I suggest that this morning there is an invitation for us to see the Lord. There is an invitation for us to encounter him and to be reminded that whatever we need, he has got. Whoever we need him to be, that is who he is. And so let me pray for us. And you might want to join in and sing with Josh, and that's fine. But you may also just want to sit and just accept that invitation. Actually, God, this morning, I need to see you. I want to come and to see you and to see who you are in my situation. God, I thank you for the life of Isaiah. Father, I thank you for all the incredible things that he wrote, but Father, just like us, he faced moments that seemed chaotic, that seemed unstable, that seemed fraught with confusion and uncertainty. And God, for me, that makes the things he says even better, because he didn't live up on some wonderful cloud where life was great. He was a real guy with real problems, with real situations, and still, and in those moments, you invited him to come and see you. And so, Father, this morning, I believe you're extending an invitation afresh to us. God, for whatever the end of our sentences of it was the year that. Father, in that year, in our story, in that season of our life, Father, this morning you say, come and see. You're God who is sovereign and reigning on the throne. Father, as we sit for a moment in your presence, would we encounter our God who has all that we need? Who may not take away our situations, though we believe you can do that in a moment. And Father, if that is the way, then we ask that you would do that. And circumstances might be changed in an instant. It just takes one word. But Father, if you want to speak to us, to remind us that you are enough to walk through this season, then Father, I pray in this moment as we sit, we would accept the invitation to come and see you, sovereign and reigning, regardless of our earthly circumstances, regardless of our earthly confusion or chaos. We choose now to accept the invitation to come and see our sovereign and reigning God.